folks provided here tonight, because I honestly have equally as many studies that would indicate that masking does work. It's long been the stance of the health department that we follow CDC guidance, and the CDC guidance has been from the onset of the 21-22 school year that that universal masking in the school environment in K-12 setting is what they recommend, and the gentleman is right. We don't have legal authority anymore to make a mandate. So it is strictly a recommendation. Yes, sir.
I just want to make sure they heard your.
Senate Bill 22 basically stripped public health, the governor, the Department of Health of the ability to make a mandate. That doesn't mean we can't make a recommendation, which is what we've done from the onset. I can tell you that the numbers in Athens County and across the state right now do sort of speak for themselves. We're seeing a definite surge in cases at the moment. All across the state, hospitals are full, including regionally. There have been 2 letters in the last 10 days that have come out. One from all of the CEOs of all the children's hospitals, and then a second from all of the CEOs of the regional hospital CEOs, requesting that people do what they can to mitigate the impact of the disease. And of course, one of the things that they highlight, which is in the letter that Dr. Gaskell crafted, is to mask. So we definitely are in the midst of a significant surge. I will also acknowledge that in the last few days we have seen a plateau, even maybe a decline in some of our numbers. But yesterday I think we posted 45 new cases in the Athens community alone. Last week we saw numbers that we have yet to see throughout the course of the pandemic. And so from an informational standpoint, which is really what I'm here to do, not argue whether or not it's civil liberties, that's a conversation for constitutional attorneys. But from what we're actually seeing in the community at the moment, we're definitely seeing a lot of COVID. We are seeing it in an age demographic that we typically have not seen it, and that's the 0 to 19-year-olds. We continue to stand by our recommendation that if you're inside, you should be wearing a mask.
Can I ask you, you said there were 45 cases last week?
Yesterday, actually.
Okay, well, yesterday. How many people out of those 45 actually died from COVID?
I can't answer that question. I can tell you that we've had we posted 1 death in the last
2 years.
3 or 4 months. 63 actually in the last 2 years. So it has been a while since we.
That's pretty good.
65,000. Yeah, 65,000. Yeah.
So I mean, if you do that by percentage, what is that? 100,000. Yeah, I mean.
Come on, guys.
Yeah,
Come on, guys.
I'm here to deliver. I'm here to deliver information, not argue.
I'm not arguing the case that COVID isn't real or whatever.
Sure.
It's a virus. It happens.
How many kid
But
deaths?
all
Has there been
these-
any kid deaths, or is it all adults that have underlying conditions
Or is that what
most
you're
of
waiting
the
on,
time?
is a kid that died?
Well, all these statistics.
It might happen.
You guys are, the Ohio Health is providing, or not Ohio Health, but the
Ohio Department of Health,
organization is providing, for example, like, you said hospitals are overcapacitated.
They're full. They're not necessarily
Okay,
operating
well,
at
they're
overcapacity,
full,
but they are
so
full.
does that specifically, does that include Ohio Health?
It does.
Okay, now, I can personally tell you that Ohio Health is not at its full limit.
They
Because
have,
some of their hospitals some of the parts of their hospitals shut down
right.
because they don't have
They don't have
staff to
staff.
actually
Yes,
staff
they have
it.
no staff.
So it's
to
not
offer
due to
care.
COVID, it's
Right.
due to staff.
So they wanna get the vaccination.
Right. So
If I
it
could
is
clap, I
established,
would.
Regardless, they cannot provide the
Clap
care
for
for
you.
the people that are coming in.
Right.
And that's what we've worried about since the onset of the pandemic, is making sure that when somebody arrives at the hospital, regardless of what it is, whether it's COVID or a heart attack or a stroke or a broken leg, or that they can receive the care that they need.
Well, I mean, a lot of that stuff to do with, the federal government
Sure.
giving out free money to unemployment. People sit home and get free money.
You got a question?
Anything to do with their children?
Yeah,
It's stopped nationally now.
Yeah, the
And
government
it's
was
stopped
on
in
and
Ohio
actually
quite a
stopped.
while ago.
Yeah.
It's stopped nationally now, but
Yeah.
it's still gonna,
Thank
we
you.
can run out of that money, I guess, for the year.
Right, that's yours.
Mr. Pepper,
Yep.
I agree with you. I know that there is different opinions on this, okay? I do know that. So what we're trying to do is keep our staff and kids safe. And we can sit and debate this all day, what's right or wrong. But I guess that what I'm trying.
So nothing's gonna
say,
change.
We've got to keep our kids and our staff safe. And we have had people in the school hospitalized over COVID.
No, I'm
I know people that have died of COVID. I get what you're saying, that it's a
I know-
virus.
I know people that.
But we're
I know
healthy,
people
though.
that's-
Yeah.
We should be okay.
I've had family members that had it,
Right.
but the question is, okay, you're following CDC guidelines, correct, on the mask mandating?
Right.
Just recommendation? Are the students, are you making sure the students are 6 feet away?
No,
Well,
they're
one,
not
that's
gonna
that's one
I
guideline
think
that they
they changed
recommended.
that to 3 feet.
They did.
but-
Well,
They pick and
But
choose.
that's up to the school to, what we need to do is just try overall to keep our.
Right,
kids
I
and
understand
our
that.
staff safe. We
But-
truly are concerned about.
I mean,
the
if
kids.
I recommend 5 different things that you should do and you pick 1 out of 5, why shouldn't you do all 5 of those
Well, I hope all
recommendations?
5 of them are you.
Well, I know for a fact that one kid last week went to the office at the middle school and asked for a mask, and they refused to give him a mask because he had none. So if you're gonna mask mandate kids to wear masks, they should be provided masks. I know the teacher that personally gave him one going down the hallway because he was getting yelled at because he had no mask on, and she said, I went to the office to get one, they refused to give me one. So,
I know.
Like, do you have masks in your office?
Yep, and every student that comes in gets one. What about you, Matt? Do you have masks?
this was the middle
How
school.
often do they change them out per day?
Yeah, I know.
I didn't hear
How
that.
often do they change them out per day?
What do you mean, change them out?
They don't.
Face mask out. You can't wear a face mask for 6 to 8 hours.
Most
The
kids
same
are
face
soaking
mask.
wet, exactly.
It's-
Mine's
it's not
already soaking
gonna
wet
happen.
sitting here for the.
I can
COVID.
go, I can bring a meter in for a confined space, and you can actually probably wear it within the next hour, and I can put that up there and you tell me that you're not getting enough oxygen to you.
My answer is if a child comes in the office and needs a mask.
Well, Hunter Bykowski, I'll put his name out there, went personally
We
because
don't
that.
wanna discuss
okay.
children's names, we
Okay.
can't do
Well,
that.
he told me.
Or we-
And, I know the teacher personally that gave him a mask because they refused to give him one.
Okay, Mr. Pepper, do you have anything else to add?
I'm happy to field any additional questions that the board may have, and,
I got a question.
yes, sir.
I appreciate you coming,
Yeah, absolutely.
I do.
but he wasn't on the agenda.
Yes, sir.
Oh, yes. Thank you, sir.
He was on
I
the
didn't see his name.
health department update, and he
I didn't see his
represents the
name.
health department, so.
There was a magic email that just happened, right?
No.
No, it does say health department.
No, I see it says health department, Mr.
I
Hurd
don't-
said
I don't
somebody
see
wasn't
his
gonna be here
name.
today, and he just said.
One.
No,
He
it
didn't
was a health department update. It wasn't on the agenda, so.
on the agenda.
I understand that, I can read it.
Yeah, that has.
Well, Mr. Hurd told you in the beginning of this meeting that the real person who was supposed to be here couldn't make it today, and he sent you an email.
But he didn't give a
Is
name.
that correct?
And he said, he didn't give a name, he
Is that
just
correct?
said it was
Was
the
there
health
email?
department update, okay?
Well, we're not gonna
He did not know when I talked to him if it was gonna be, Mr. Pepper or Dr. Downs.
So he wasn't signed in for the meeting also.
So he was on the agenda.
He was on the agenda as a representative for
Yeah.
the health department.
Yeah,
The health department was on the agenda, and so that would be like if we had a contractor working on our track out here, and we're gonna have an update. So I understand that, it makes sense to me. And the gentleman that was gonna come, COVID, he sends his assistant, that makes sense. I think it's a question.
I have a question for Mr. Pepper.
Mhm.
What is the protocol for a confirmed case? Before you answer that, my daughter, who was perfectly healthy, was counted as a confirmed case because she was within close quarters of another student who was out sick, and she was counted as a confirmed case. What is the protocol for all these confirmed cases?
Well,
Are
well,
they
that-
getting tested?
Right, so
What kind
if,
of test?
if that in fact happened, it should have, because a close contact is never considered a confirmed case. Now, There is something called probable cases, which is somebody, for example, if you have a sibling, so your daughter is sick and a sibling then presents with symptoms and the doctor maybe says, oh, you don't need to bring her in, there's COVID in the house, she's lost her taste of sense and smell, it's a probable case. So close contacts that are not symptomatic and not tested should not be considered confirmed cases or probable cases for that matter. They should quarantine, and that's a state law. That's not a health department choice. I mean, it's a revised code section that says you shall. And the same goes for those that are sick, except that's called isolation. So isolation applies to those that are actually confirmed sick. Quarantine applies to those that are considered close contacts.
Okay, so the school district doesn't have any authority to quarantine students?
No, the school district has the authority to what they consider an exclusion.
Exclusion.
Yeah, the health department, the authority to quarantine lies with the health commission, really. It's the health department, the health commission.
So when my oldest was excluded from school for 10 days in which she wasn't given, work, she's behind on some of the work, we got her caught up. Her younger sister was not excluded from school. There's no common sense there. They're in
Well,
close
she
quarters.
probably,
at home.
yeah, I can't speak to, I don't know the circumstance, and I'm happy to look into it. If you wanna talk more outside of the meeting, I'm happy to do that. It sounds to me like she was considered a close contact, and if your daughter was, the sibling was not a close contact, you know, somebody who was positive, then she would not have had the same quarantine or exclusion as the other sibling.
Okay, thank you.
I got a quick question for you, maybe.
Yep.
It's kind of unrelated to what's going on here, but how is the health department dealing with the home test?
So can you elaborate maybe a little more on the context? So I'm familiar with the home
My
test.
family,
I'm familiar with the home test, and we have we actually recently added, so in the last, I'm gonna say month, 4 weeks, the home test has really exploded, as we've seen an increase in, you know, last year at this time, we didn't have home tests.
Right.
Testing was really scarce. At this point, we do have some home testing. And so what we've done is we have the Ohio Department of Health has given us guidance that if we receive notification of an FDA approved test, and most of those home tests are, then, you know, there isn't necessarily a medical diagnosis required to consider them a confirmed case.
so they will consider it confirmed?
They will, so.
That was my
so then
question, I was just curious.
Yep, so what we actually have is there's a form on our website now, that allows people to self-report. So if you take an at-home test, you test positive, you can then, if you call our department and say, hey, I tested positive, what do I do? We're first of all gonna, you know, do our best to walk you through that circumstance on the phone. But if for some reason, we can't get to you, or somebody's not comfortable calling, there's a form on our website now that you can fill out that will allow us to then make contact with the case and do the case investigation piece, and then talk to them about what isolation is.
That's, the base of my question just was, do you recognize them now?
Yeah.
You do. Thank you.
Anything else, Scott? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. I can leave?
Yeah, you're.
You're not mandated to leave, but you.
You're not mandated.
Alright, thank you guys. If any of you have any questions, call me at the health department. I may not always have the answer that you like, but I definitely wanna hear from everybody. Good, bad, indifferent, agree, disagree, I wanna hear from all of you, so.
Mr. Pepper, I think I do have a question.
Okay?
When all the school started, in August, it was not a week, and there was a surge in cases.
Correct.
You could sit back and watch it.
Yes,
There were people getting hospitalized and all.
that is true.
When the mask started coming back out,
Yes.
and by the way, I've worn these for over 40 years off and on, so
Yeah.
I feel that they do work.
Mm-hmm.
Did the cases in the schools start to go down? Is that true or false?
I think it's not, I don't think we can make an accurate assessment at this point, to be perfectly honest. I think that's the real answer. I'm not trying to be evasive, but it's, you know, a lot of our
Right.
districts have
You don't have
recently just
data.
flipped.
Okay.
And I think that there's a real, possibility that we came back, there was this huge influx of disease, and there was. And between vaccination and between sort of, you know, people getting sick, we could be arriving at a place where, on a natural, virus curve, we're sort of on that downhill slope. So I think that it is, not fair for us at this point to make that sort of an assessment. We definitely are watching and trying to keep track of that. Athens is the only district in the county that started, with a masking mandate, but then they almost immediately went into 10 days of closing schools because they had the bus driver shortage. So
Right.
I can't even look to that data set to really get a firm answer at this point. So I'm happy to have that
No, that's
conversation
okay.
to move
I
on,
just
but
appreciate your honesty. I wanted to know what you had, cause it looked like it here.
yeah.
And so I just, you know, I just
Right.
wondered if you'd got an overall view.
Kathy, a lot of that surge too was the variant. The
Well, it
Delta
is the
variant
variant.
is much more
Oh, yeah,
contagious.
it is the variant.
That's a true statement.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, it's, yeah, it definitely is the variant. You
I
don't have
work
to convince me
retail,
on that.
deal with 200 to 300 people a day, face to face.
Yeah.
And never had any problem with COVID until this year, so, till within the last month. But I also, at the same time, in the same month, went through the flu, which I will tell you is much worse than COVID for me, but I understand that COVID affects everybody different.
It does.
And so does the flu, and then of course
Indeed.
there's all the different strains of flu.
And that's the thing with COVID, you never know how it's gonna affect, but this,
But you
you're
don't-
right about the flu, it does the same thing, but maybe not to the numbers,
My,
so.
My
And the first
wife's-
week back to school, everybody usually gets sick anyways. I know, for instance, my kid every the first year, every year, the first week of school, he's out for the next week because he's sick. Before the COVID even hit.
my viruses all
For
day.
viruses altogether, like everybody just mixing, it's a normal, it's a good for the immune system to get different viruses. Actually, it helps you build immunity against them.
Is that it?
Thank you.
Thank you guys, thank you
Thanks,
guys.
John. We appreciate you coming.
Yeah, we do appreciate you coming, Mr. Pepper.
Be careful.
Okay, so we're gonna go moving along on legislative updates.